my name is Jonathan Manson, and I'm the principal cello of the Dunedin Consort. I also play the violadagamba, and for many years I've been lucky enough to play both instruments in our performances of the St. Matthew Passion by J.S. Bach, surely the greatest musical setting of the Easter story and one of the most moving and fascinating pieces in our repertoire. Easter is usually the busiest time of year for gamba players. Bach very kindly wrote arias for the instrument in his settings of both the John and Matthew Passions. This year, of course, will be completely different for everyone. It may be the first Easter for hundreds of years in which no live performances of the Passion story will take place anywhere in the world. But I simply couldn't imagine my part for the Matthew Passion staying on the shelf until next year. So from my practice room, I'd like to share with you some of what this aria means to me and what it's like to play. Komm, süßes, Kreuz comes at a very intense and dramatic moment in the Passion story. Jesus has just been mocked and tortured by the baying mob, and having been sentenced to death, is being led out to his crucifixion. According to Matthew's Gospel, a man called Simon of Cyrene is forced to carry Jesus' cross up the hill to Golgotha. The aria that follows freezes the action at this moment of almost unbearable tension and horror, and attempts to turn our attention inward, to meditate on what has happened and interrogate our own conscience. The bass sings, "Come, sweet cross, so I will say, my Jesus, give it always to me." As you can hear, the opening ritornello is characterized by extended sequences of dotted rhythms, bursts of decorative figures, and huge leaps all over the instrument. It's no accident that these are all features of the French overture, which originated in the hugely influential 17th century court of Louis XIV as a way of expressing the splendor and majesty of the Sun King. Here, Bach is using the same musical style to allude to the heavenly rather than earthly majesty of Jesus Christ, the King of the Jews. I think the style also helps to convey a sense of tremendous nobility. Not the nobility of well-dressed courtiers at Versailles, of course, but the nobility of self-sacrifice and generosity embodied by Simon dragging the immensely heavy cross for Jesus. The first part of the aria personalizes that moment in the mind of the listener. This isn't about Simon of Cyrene, after all, but about the unshakable individual commitment behind the words, "Give it always to me." As listeners, we're encouraged to ask ourselves, how would it feel to be the one who carries the cross for the Son of God? Surely that would be the most exalted point of your life, invoking a kind of religious ecstasy in which the most difficult things become possible. The second part of the aria focuses on exactly that. Now the idea of us helping Jesus is reversed. Like a mirror image of the first part, here we're consoled by the realization that we don't have to struggle on our own. "If my suffering should become too heavy," as the text goes, "you will help me to bear it myself." Bach sets the words "too heavy," zu schwer, with huge leaps to the bottom of the 7-string gamba. He even silences the continuo part on those beats, so that the effect of the gamba trying to hit the bottom notes won't be lost. arrive in the comforting key of B-flat major. The sighing, sorrowful vocal line changes direction with the words, "You will help me to bear it myself." The singer climbs up from the depths towards the peak of the phrase on the word me, wafted by weightless clouds of notes in the gamba part. I love the way that Bach manages to suggest both the anguish and struggle of what's happening, but also the way that it can be transcended. The phrases that follow seem almost to be reaching up longingly towards the heavens, bringing us back full circle to the opening material in G minor. Bach's listeners might have reflected on how, in demonstrating their faith by helping others, they themselves would be helped at their moments of greatest need. And even without the Lutheran context, I think the idea that being able to help others is in itself a gift still has a powerful resonance for us. This is difficult music to get round on the gamba. I've been practicing it for almost 30 years, and there are still quite a few bits that don't seem to get any easier. Perhaps Bach wanted the technical challenges of the music to reflect the physical effort of carrying the cross, as some people have suggested. On the other hand, Bach does write very idiomatically in the French gamba style, which is closely related to that of its fretted cousin, the lute. In fact, he originally wrote this obligato for the lute, and with their similar tuning patterns and lightweight, resonant construction, both instruments revel in elegant chords and graceful leaps. This very different style of playing can make the experience of performing the aria quite a nerve-wracking one. When I've just switched from playing the cello, the gamba can feel strangely unfamiliar, a bit squeaky, and often not very well in tune, especially when you put hot hands on gut strings that haven't been played for a while. The long opening ritornello can feel very exposed and uncomfortable while you're getting into your stride, so I sometimes find it quite easy to identify with Simon of Kyrene and his struggles to get the cross moving. But as the piece unfolds, I try to focus on the majestic beauty of the vocal line and the solemn processional character of the bass line, and find myself being swept along by the fervent, ecstatic flow of the gamba part. By the time I've got to the last ritornello, I often have the feeling that the weight of the cross has now become somehow immaterial. The music has allowed us to glimpse the experience of being mysteriously lifted up and transported.